Welcome everybody to another Access Agile festival event. Lovely to see you all. Do recognise a lot of friendly faces. If this is your first event of the festival, very warm welcome to you. I do have a quick set of slides, just one slide that I'm just going to share quickly, and then we will make a start. Right, hopefully you can see that. So you can give me a nod or a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up. You see that? So yeah, this is Access Agile festival, three-day festival of events. Amazing. There's 130 events in the program. It's a global event, inclusive. Everybody's welcome, and we've got participants and speakers from all over the world. And it's free, of course, and it was all built entirely by volunteers, a very hard-working bunch of individuals from around the globe. And it is, our kind of festival emerged out of Agile 20 Reflect, which you might remember from February. If you want to get more information, if you're kind of still warming up to it and trying to figure out what to attend and what's going on, find everything on the website. Here's the URL. We do have a code of conduct. Every event involved, every speaker, every participant, everybody's agreed and adhered to the code of conduct. So do please respect that. And if you want to familiarise yourself with it more, you'll find it on the website. And you'll find the festival present on all these social channels. So you're linked on Facebook or whatever's your preference. And you'll find the rest of the programme on Meetup. So do check it out. There's lots and lots of great events over the rest of today and over tomorrow and Saturday. So yeah, enjoy. And that's that. I think that's as much as I'm going to say. Right, lovely to be doing this. I'm always thrilled to host Johanna, because Johanna's a great inspiration to me, like a coach and a mentor, and sometimes refer to her as an aunt, which I'm not sure she always likes. But I was privileged to do a wonderful writing workshop with Johanna not that long ago, actually. So always learning lots from her all the time. I've hosted her before. I think she needs no introduction. She has written several books, which you'll find on our website, and she's referred to as the Pragmatic Manager. She has a tremendous blog. She also wrote an excellent book with Mark Gilby on distributed teams. You might want to check it because it's awesome. And there's some other of her amazing books on the bottom of her title screen. But with that, I'm going to hand over to Johanna. Johanna, wonderful to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. So, all of you, please check your mutedness or not. And I am going to drink water during this session because I have allergies, and every so often I just cough. Well, if we're lucky, I only cough. Every so often I sneeze. Fine. It's that time of year. So this is Want Business Agility. Start with your managers. And let me tell you a story. I have gone through this same story with now 4 of my clients. They all said, we want business agility. And what they said was, it'll be better, it'll be faster, it'll be cheaper. I said, I'm not sure that that's what you're going to get with business agility. They said, oh no, that's what Bing Framework promised us. That's what this large consulting company promised us. That's what we need. We need better, faster, cheaper. I said, okay. How about the ability to change what's in the project portfolio? How about the a change in strategy? Oh, no. We will get teams to give us better, faster, cheaper. So that's what they thought business agility was. That was the first problem. So they went about this transformation, and I put transformation in quotes because I'm not so sure that this is a transformation. They trained all of the teams in an Agile framework. And when I say all of them, I mean that for one organization of 5,000 people, it was something like, I don't know, a couple hundred teams. It was craziness. And all 3 of these clients created an Agile Center of Excellence. The 4th did not, but the 3 previous clients did. And I was still coaching the executives. I was still in there working with them. but most of them said to me, "We don't need you, Johanna. We're going to make it with this transformation." So one of the very big things that happened is the managers did not change anything at all. All the managers were functional managers, which can work. You don't have to change management to have cross-functional managers. But so they had dev managers and test managers and UX managers and DevOps managers, which I don't understand at all, but that's fine. And every one of those managers had their own goals. And that the manager's goals were about delivery of products, and that those delivery goals cascaded down to each person. So if a dev manager was supposed to have a delivery goal for a given release, all of the developers also had delivery goals for that release. That was about slicing up the work, not delivering features, but slicing and dicing. That meant that everybody was focused on efficiency, not effectiveness. How busy is every single person? How much can every single person do? All that stuff. And so often they said, failure is not an option. I hope that you don't hear this in your organization, but too often I hear failure is not an option. When we're experimenting, when we're learning, I hesitate to tell you all the times I have learned, which might be code for failed just this week. So, and one of the other problems is they had very high organizational width. So width is work in progress, and the total width across the organization was very, very high. So in all of my clients, the Agile transformation failed. They had no business agility. Now, these are well-meaning people. And I'm not asking you to blame the managers. They're all part of the system of work and the culture. And if we think about the culture, we might see what some of the issues are, right? The environment, the culture, all that. And when I think about business agility, I realize it requires a huge change in management practices. So we're going to walk through some of those changes. The first is changing how we think about efficiency versus effectiveness. I think I'm very efficient. I'm only efficient for my work. I believe that when Seth was in my writing workshop, I actually said in one of the debriefs that I had exactly the same thing for lunch every single day. And everybody in the workshop kind of went, "You are really, really strange." So I think that was then, Seth. And yeah, and I am strange. I happen to like not having to think about what I have for lunch every single day. Now, that's my little efficiency. Does that work for any of you? No, probably not. You probably have much more variation in your lunches. You might even have variations in your breakfast and not the same 4 or 5 meals that you have for dinner, right? My husband and I are creatures of habit. We really enjoy this. We use these kinds of efficiencies, you might call them ruts, to allow us to be more effective in other places in our lives. So when we are more effective, especially in the organization, we choose the most valuable work first. We only focus on the most valuable work. We don't try and do it all. We choose what will make us effective in the marketplace. That's the difference between efficient and effective, right? Efficient says, take the waste out of everything, regardless of whether or not it's effective, right? You don't actually care about whether I have the same thing for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. That does not affect how I produce workshops and books and all of my products. But you definitely care about the value of my products. Well, either you buy them or you don't, But if you do buy them, you care whether or not I have been effective in my output, right? So if we are effective in the organization, we choose the most valuable work in the project portfolio. So what's really interesting is I find that when I work with senior leadership teams or the middle management teams on the project portfolio, it's very clear whether or not all the managers have one overarching goal. So think about the project portfolio as a way to instantiate your strategy. You answer the questions: which customers do we serve and which problems do we solve? The projects in your portfolio answer those questions. So there's a whole bunch more about this, but you collect all the work and you rank order it. I won't go into ranking. And then you have the commit, kill, transform decision. If you commit to a team or a series of teams in a program, you commit fully to the team. You don't say, oh, try, right? Try to start this without testers. Try to start this without UX. No, you commit to either cross-functional teams or you commit to enough people that the people doing the work can create cross-functional teams of any variety. That's what I mean by a full commitment. When you commit, when you invest in a team, that says, we choose to invest in you, team, so you can create this effective output, which serves our desired customers and solves problems for those customers. Now, you might realize the upper arrow here that you actually need several teams, what I call a program, what other people call scaling agile. I don't call it that. That means you might have to say, oh, in order to really commit to teams, I need to transform either who the customers are, the problems that we solve, how we think about this project inside our organization, and then we commit. So we always fully commit to a team where we decide to invest for some amount of time in that team or teams. Now, what about the kill decision? If your organization does not kill projects in the project portfolio on a regular basis, or if you're much nicer than I am, you put things on the parking lot, right? The parking lot is for people who don't like the word kill. And then if you're like me, as soon as things have stayed on the parking lot for at least a quarter, you just take them off the parking lot, you put them on the extra long-term parking, and eventually you just delete them. Because if you're not going to get to it in the next 3 to 6 months, certainly a year, you're not going to do it. Take it out of consideration, right? Don't create cognitive overload by trying to consider things that you're just not going to do. So you can see that if we commit to a team or several teams in the case of a program, we can reduce the organizational weight. We can say to people, instead of having 350 projects, as one of my clients has, we only have 150 projects for 200 teams. That is doable. It might not be a small number of projects enough yet, but it's totally doable as opposed to 350 projects for 200 teams. 350 projects for 200 teams, it does not matter how efficient those teams are at all. The multitasking, the cognitive overload, that's going to take away any efficiency that we have. So being effective will reduce the organizational width. Now, let me talk a little bit about the culture. Sean talks about values and artifacts and assumptions, and he just confuses me. I really like to think about how people can treat each other, what people can discuss, and how the manager and the organization rewards people. And all of that, this business of what we choose to discuss and how we treat each other and all the rewards, That is what defines the culture. So if you have not heard about Kurt Lewin, then I strongly recommend you read about him. He says that every person's behavior is a function of that person and their environment. So I'm not going to ask you to answer anything in the chat, but I will ask you to think about these questions. How much psychological safety do your managers have for mistakes and concerns and challenges? Right? Not just the people, but the managers. How much trust do people build with colleagues and team members and the managers at various levels in the hierarchy? What behaviors do managers reward and what behaviors do managers tolerate? If you have an ungeller in your team, and ungellers can occur at any place in the hierarchy, the more you tolerate an ungeller, somebody who prevents teamwork, the less psychological safety everybody has. And I'm going to do a little rant on the organizational policies and procedures that both mostly hurt work and then sometimes help work. But think about this as an environment, right? If you think about the culture with how people behave in your environment, you can see that this business of what we can discuss, how we treat each other, and the rewards are a huge, huge piece of that environment. I would actually say that the environment is the culture, and the culture is the environment. And if you, I'm still at in my home office, as you can see. I suspect that almost all of you are still in your home offices, or at least not at work with everybody back at work. And so it's not so much the physical accoutrements of an office that is the culture. It's really how we treat each other and what we can and cannot discuss and what we reward. So let me ask you this question. You don't have to answer because I'm not going to look at the chat. Does your organization reward only individuals? That's resource efficiency thinking. That's where the work assignment arrives. You do your part and hand off to the next person. They do their part. They hand off to the next person. They do their part. Hand off, hand off, hand off. All of these arrows are potential delays. Allergies. Oh well. Now think about how a team can work together. If any of you are familiar with mob or ensemble programming, you are familiar with flow efficiency thinking. And I know some of you work in flow efficiency when you refine stories, when you plan for the next iteration, when you as a team generate some kind of work in what I will call a workshop, right? When you work together as a team to workshop the work, you are working as a team in flow efficiency. So the work assignment arrives in a meeting, in a workshop, that's the agenda. You work as a team to finish this, and then you finish the work. So we all do some flow efficiency thinking work, and often some of us have some resource efficiencies, but it really depends on what the organization rewards. If you only reward individuals, how much collaboration are you going to get? Why would people collaborate on a regular basis? Now, if you have some individual and some team-based rewards, you are much more likely to get to flow efficiency thinking and flow efficiency in the organization. I never measure flow efficiency, right? I'm not going to look for the ratios. I do measure cycle time because I want to know how much time do I wait for other people, right? Understanding my deliverables to other people and understanding how much time I wait for others instead of us working together as a collaborative team. that's useful for me, but I don't actually measure the flow efficiency of anything. So let's face it, rewards reinforce the system. If you've heard about carrots and sticks, right? Carrots are rewards, sticks are anti-rewards. The more you have carrots that reinforce one kind of a system, the more you will get that. If you only reward resource efficiency, you will get individual work. You will. So let's talk about what a resource efficiency culture creates. It creates more organizational width. Why? Because you're always focused on my work, where you cooperate with other people, but you're working with other people, right? You're missing that collaboration with the rest of the team. And I'm talking about team at any level here. Resource efficiency and rewarding resource efficiency reinforces individual expertise, and also inadvertently might reinforce information hiding. So, and the biggest thing I see when you have only solo rewards is a reluctance to experiment. Why? Because you might miss out on your golden handcuffs. You might miss out on all of the possible rewards in terms of bonus, opportunity for more salary, promotion, all that stuff. So resource efficiency thinking looks efficient, right? If I go back to this graphic, it looks as if everybody is busy. This one, flow efficiency, doesn't look as if everybody is busy, but the changes in the entire organization means we want much more flow efficiency. Now, a flow efficiency culture creates a whole lot more experimentation, because we don't have to worry about whether or not we can make a mistake. We know we can make a mistake because we have all of our colleagues there to back us up. And if you're like me and you're practicing, I don't know how to do that, then often people say, especially if I then had, I need help, people are very, very happy to help you and support you, right? So we get a whole lot more experimentation in a flow efficiency culture. We are much more likely to learn early. I really hate the term fail fast, because I don't know anybody who wants to fail at all. Never mind fast, never mind in public. So I do want to learn early. That's a very, very big deal for me. And then I want a whole lot more collaboration, not just cooperation. I want to work together with my colleagues, regardless of the team that we are on. Now, let me ask you this question. How long do teams wait for management decisions? And this might be an individual management decision or a much more global management decision. Let me tell you about the story of one manager who had 3 deliverables to the teams that he supported, that he led and served. So this first item he worked on for an hour, and then he needed time to wait for other people to get back to him. He took another hour, and then he had another 5 days. And then finally, he worked on it for 20 minutes or something, and the item was done. So the work time was really maybe 2+ hours. The wait time was 10 days. The total cycle time for this decision was 10+ days, right? 10+ days. So a week and a half for this particular item. Item 2 is even worse for the wait time. Although it looks like the work time was pretty good, right? 3 hours here, 5 hours there, and then the waiting was also very long. So the work time was 8 hours, and the wait time was 13 days. So a total cycle time of 14 days. That's 2 weeks. And you have to count the weekends because people are still waiting on the weekends, right? Time marches on. Now, this third item, right, where the work time is in between meetings, this manager said, I have a couple minutes here. So 20 minutes there, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 5 minutes there, waiting for all kinds of other stuff. And the cycle time for this is yet unknown because it's 40 minutes, but it's 8 days of wait so far. This item is not yet done. So this is 8 days of cycle time, and this manager does not know when this work will be done. So what if you have a team waiting for you to deliver an answer to their question? Yeah, I'm still working on it, right? It's been a week. It's been over a week. It's been a couple weeks. I'm still working on it. So how good are you at tracking all of this personal WIP? I use personal Kanban. I write everything down, and even so, if I have a lot of WIP, some things just go past me. I just don't know where they are. I've totally forgotten them. Now, let's talk about the resource efficiency effect for managers as a whole. You all have seen the project portfolio decision. So let's just say that a quarter in advance, the managers start to decide on the project portfolio. They spend a couple of hours on it. They think that they need a forecast from the team, right? Well, from all the teams. That takes, they give the team 3 weeks to offer some forecasting. The managers then make some initial decisions. That takes them another couple of hours. And now they say, but we need better estimation. Can you please refine the stories and give us more information? If you're like me and you rolled your eyes, fine, you still do it, but it still takes you 3 weeks. Then the managers take another couple of hours to make a final decision just for the next 3 months. So the managers only incur a work time of 6 hours, and they have the project portfolio done for 1 quarter. But what about all this wait time? And what did the teams do while they were trying to do this? They were working on the forecasting. They were working on the stories and the estimation. So while the managers didn't make a decision, the overall cycle time for the managers and the project portfolio decision was over 1,000 hours. Over 1,000 hours. That's craziness, right? So how can something this important take that long to decide? Well, one of the really big reasons is because in this organization, each of the managers had individual goals. Remember, I told you that the development manager early on had his or her individual goals, and the QA manager had his or her individual goals, and the UX manager had his and her individual goals. The more people have individual goals, the less they can agree on the project portfolio. That's why it takes hours to decide. Now, it's very helpful to have the conversations, but if you don't have an overarching goal for the entire organization, you're not going to get business agility. I mean, if it takes over 1,000 hours to decide on the project portfolio, in what way, shape, or form is that agile for the business? It's not. So this is why management cycle time really matters. So there's all kinds of policies that prevent agility also. Don't get me started on standardizing on boards or tooling for the teams. Every team, most often in the organization, teams do different kinds of work. Does every team need a board? Yes. Does every team need a Scrum board? No. Right. Does every team need the same tooling? No. How can you manage expenses for the organization and still offer the individual teams the boards and the tooling that they need? That's a management policy. And that's where managers add value to the organization? What about insufficient workspace for a team? I'm not going to ask who does not have a good back channel, a chat back channel right now, because we have been in this pandemic for almost 18 months now, and there are still some teams who are struggling for a chat back channel so that they can easily talk asynchronously. Nuts. I really like to train people when the work changes, and often it's not so much on the technical skills. It's often on the interpersonal skills. Do we know how to offer each other feedback and coaching? Do we understand how to build psychological safety? If we don't know how to do this, we need to learn. And if we only have policies that say, well, you can only go to training once a year and by yourself, that's not a very agile approach to these policies. I often see these very long duration decisions based on estimation, not cycle time or forecast, which is part of the project portfolio issue. And then the whole issue about performance management. Look, all of us are adults. We pretty much get ourselves to work on time. I wear boring clothing. It's one of my little efficiencies, but I'm adequately dressed. I'm adequately fed. I know how to take responsibility for myself. I don't need performance management, and neither do you, right? So performance management is one of those things that's just broken and has been broken for all kinds of interesting reasons. Maybe we'll get to that in the Q&A. So let me show you a possible flow efficiency organized product development organization. We talk about the senior leadership team, right? We talk about these people all the time. And we talk about cross-functional teams kind of below this. But let me talk about our director level team and a manager team. If we have cohort-based teams at all levels of the organization, then people can collaborate as managers, not just as senior leaders, and not just as cross-functional product or feature teams, but the directors serve for multiple cross-functional teams. Managers serve multiple cross-functional teams. And if they don't know how to serve more than one, they start with one. Now, what would have to be true in your organization to create cohort-based management teams that would enable business agility? I suspect the managers would have to learn about all the other functions. So being just a dev manager is not sufficient. As a dev manager, you would also need to learn about QA, you would need to learn about DevOps, you would need to learn about UX, and any other cross functions in the teams that you lead and serve. Now, do you have to be an expert at everything? No, because your job is to coach and offer feedback and do meta coaching and meta feedback so that the people on the cross-functional teams can learn from one another. So if you take the idea of collaboration in an agile team with small steps and getting feedback all the time, you can see that moving to a flow efficiency based product development organization requires small steps at every single level. It requires knowledge of all of the other cross functions at every single level. This is how you get to business agility, right? Not by training everybody in an agile framework. Is training useful? Possibly, but thinking about how do we make the environment a collaborative environment with overarching goals where we each understand our value and we support our team to create even more value. That's where business agility can really shine. So think about the environment that you would need for business agility. So I'm going to ask you to think about adaptable and resilient management practices. I'm all about adaptability and resilience, right? So if we think about How are we adaptable and resilient personally, in our teams, for the organization? That's how we start to think about business agility. Instead of thinking about efficiencies, we think about effectiveness. How can we reduce organizational width? How can we think about flow efficiency at all levels to excel at delivering something useful on a regular basis? If you have ever looked at the cycle time for any business decision in your organization, you will see that any given team's cycle time is often much, much less than business decisions. How do we make it possible for managers to make faster business decisions, test those decisions, get the feedback on those decisions, and then possibly remake the decision? How can we reward especially management collaboration, not individual performance? And how can we understand our management decision time so we can reduce the overall width, the work in progress in the organization? So you probably, if you've read the Modern Management Made Easy series, a whole bunch of these principles kind of jumped out at you. I really like the idea of how can we make it safe for people to experiment? How can we catch people succeeding, right? If we think about all these principles, we're much more likely to succeed. So I hope that we stay in touch. Please link with me on LinkedIn. Consider the Pragmatic Manager newsletter. I'm going to stop the share and answer questions now. Okay.
Fabulous.
There.
Thank you, Johanna.
All right. So Seth, you're going to give me questions.
Yes, well, I've got one, and then we can open it up to the group. If you stick your hands up, then I'll lead you in. But I've got one in the chat from Anthony. It's a nice one. I can get the rationale for the question. So it's around I think you made a point about standardizing on boards and tooling for teams, but how well does that really apply in extremely large enterprises? I'm in one of them, so yeah, I can relate to that. If we're getting approvals and you're coordinating billing, etc., can be basically a bit of a pain. Do that kind of shared work and visualization, especially in non-software development teams. So, quite a long question. Did you get that?
Right. So did that start with standard? I found it. So
standardizing, in large organizations.
So let's talk about approvals and billing. Why does your management not trust you to live in some kind of constraints, to say, whatever you choose for a board, you must make it so it does not cost more than this amount, right?
Yeah, that's not what I'm trying to talk and listen to you and write the question, so I probably could have done a better job. So that's on me. What I'm saying is, we have, let's say there's 4 tools for wall of work, right? 4 tools we could choose from. The problem is not that, it's the coordination of, well, then which people are going to be on which board for which project. And of that, now they're on 3 different tools for 3 different projects. So the effectiveness of them, and potentially efficiency too, would be, that's context switching at its minimum, right? But I'm looking at it as, okay, it feels like for certain flows of work, it would be helpful to standardize from the standpoint of at least everybody's looking at the same stream of information and the way it's represented. I'm not about one tool's better than the other. I don't care. What I really care about, right, is do we have a shared understanding, and how do we align that understanding? The assumption that your director level, management level made, in my opinion, is that there is some sort of extreme clarity on objectives and key results, or some other framework whereby that you absolutely know that work moves needles that matter, and it's not just because that director said so and this director, and it also doesn't account for when the directors have 4 bosses, right? So it's like, and as it gets more and more complex, it feels like at least standardizing in the way we represent the flow and prioritization of work would be a good thing at scale. So I was just pushing back, not to say you're wrong, just to say, help me with the thinking.
Okay, so let me suggest to you that if I am on 3 different teams, that's a bad thing, right? And that as a team member on any given team, my colleagues can teach me about the board I need to know in 20 seconds or less, right? And if I change teams, okay, maybe not 20 seconds, maybe 10 minutes. So if I then change teams and I go to another kind of a board or use different tooling, I will take a little bit of time to learn how to use that tooling for that team. But if I am on 3 different teams, and yes, I have non-standard tooling, the real problem is not the tooling. The real problem is I'm on 3 different teams. And then who was looking at the board? If managers are looking at a team's board, that's nuts. Now, managers need to look at their own boards. And yes, managers should agree on what those boards are. I have no problem with that. But managers often need very, very different boards than a team needs.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So let's talk about what, and you had said something about non-software development.
Yeah, because what you're describing, like if you're thinking DevOps or something, like absolutely, the vast majority, when I first learned it, the company I was hired as a director of communication, it was software as a service. I walked into the dev room and there's a 60-foot, 10-foot tall whiteboard. And I'm like, this is amazing. What is this, right? It was because they were head down, non-interrupt driven work. They could estimate, prioritize, and deliver. In marketing, hair on fire. I got salespeople leading stuff, clients, so there's a responsive nature. So in sales, which I lead, now, so Agile sales, what we're trying to accomplish is individual contributors, individually motivated, right, working as a team. And so the idea of teaming is far more valuable for the work that we're doing than dedicated teams, which is why somebody would be on 3 teams. It's not a dedicated team. It's ad hoc teams that spin up based on a need, solve for the need, dissolve and go on. But you're going to be involved in more than one by the very nature of the interrupt driven portion of the work, because it's not all planned work. So this is why I was saying feels like in that kind of environment. And it's why I said non-software development. It could be that what I'm talking about is so different than what you're demonstrating today that maybe I'm missing it and I'm kind of like the wrong, guy for this talk. But it feels like standardization at some level is helpful only because it's one less thing.
So you are absolutely correct. The very first time people change teams. And then the second time, doesn't matter. Right? Because learning how to use the different tools, that's not so hard.
I still do. My contention is that it's not the tools. It's the way that the work is represented is probably somewhat different because the tools are different and the teams operate differently. It's the way of working that becomes harder.
Okay.
But again, Anthony, thank you so much. I'm learning. So thank you.
Okay. So send me an email, because what you are talking about is other people's view of the work as opposed to the team's view of the work. And let's talk by email. Mo, you had your hand raised.
Thank you very much, Johanna. And I had just a couple of questions, one very quick and very easy, and another one about the managers. The first one, that is the easy one. Before the talk, you said a lot about the books and all the things that you read, and you shared wonderful bibliography in your talk. So I would ask, what is the book that has changed your view about agility the most?
I want to say almost anything by Peter Drucker, Deming, McGregor. So as I was doing the research for the Modern Management Made Easy books, I realized that, Jerry Weinberg, of course, that all the people who were writing back in the 50s and the 60s, Jerry was writing in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they were all talking about the same ideas that we need for business agility now.
Perfect.
And the real problem, so I really like the manifesto and the Agile manifesto for software development. And the problem with the original signatories is that only Jim Highsmith had any interest in project management, And they all, I don't know what happened in Snowbird, but most of the people there did not have any use for managers of any kind. That's fine. And that meant that a lot of people thought that agility meant no managers. What it meant was no command and control, and instead, how do we support and lead the people that we serve? And that has changed. At least that's my message. And I keep
actually, John, that's a great segue for my actual question. So yes, I can see the value of the managers, but sometimes, like especially in large organizations, we have like all these layers of middle managers. And as you said, that it was like the director, the manager, it's kind of easy to see how they add value, how he or she managing the team gives you the tools, enables the team, fixes a lot of things by admin. But when you have all these middle managers, maybe there's one layer, or in many cases there are more than one layer of all these managers, and they're just trying to manage themselves and just sending mail like, how are you doing, and tell me your status, and that's it. That's all they do. Transitioning from that part of in agility, sometimes the change comes from the top and from the bottom, but it's this layer in the middle, that this thick ham cheese sandwich that is the middle managers, that they don't know where they are going to be in agility. So how can we help them transition, and what is a role that would help in another agility, because they do add value to the organization, they do have knowledge, but what to do with them?
Okay, so I am way behind on my writing whip. I have a series of posts about what an agile job description, job ladder might be. And I did a workshop for one of the sometime in the spring. So there's a speaker deck with better pictures in it. First of all, we need to protect the money that those people make before we change anything about them. Because if we don't protect the money that they make, why would they stay in the organization? I'm assuming that they add value in some way, shape, or form. So we often have a technical track where people are mostly influence the technology. We have a facilitation track where people mostly influence teams and the process. And we also have a leadership track where people influence the culture and lead and serve people. So I suspect that many of the managers that exist right now in organizations need to be much more product owners or architects. And I'm talking about in the teams, right? Whether you call them product managers or product leaders or product owners, all that stuff. It's really important to talk about where people influence and what that means for their new job. That means we need to change job descriptions and levels. We need to change compensation. This is not a fast thing. So none of my clients are willing to work with me on this right now. They take one look at this and they say, that's Agile HR, but it's really Agile HR as opposed to what the other stuff that's going on. And we don't want to touch it yet. Okay. So if you have a client for me, I would really like to work on this with them. So the quick answer is protect their income, because otherwise we're going to lose their capabilities and lose their expertise. And because we've been working in resource efficiency, we cannot afford to lose their expertise. Figure out what the various job letters need to be, and then work towards rationalizing them. Big deal.
We're kind of nearly up on time. There's maybe time for one more quick one. If anybody's got a quick, make the most of the time with Johanna. Scott, put your hand up. You can ask a question. You were late. You're not getting to ask a question.
I was talking.
There you are.
I've got a question. Okay. I love Harrison. I love Harrison Owen's work. The system always does what the system needs. The system, time and time again, replicates managers. Yeah. If we take an ideological Maoist approach, we don't need managers, but the system needs managers. Are we screwing the system?
Or is a Maoist approach?
Yeah, it's MAO.
I think that there's also this other quote that every system is designed to get the effects that it's designed for. It's in the modern management books, but I don't remember the exact quote. I find that management is actually helpful, right? Serving leadership is helpful. So I don't want to get rid of all of the managers, but I do want to make it possible for managers not to have to command and control. And the more we say to people, we will pay you based on your ability to coach other people, your ability to, for lack of a better word, get good results from other people by helping them understand their capabilities and working to improve on their capabilities to reinforce what's working, right? That the more we reinforce amping up the good as opposed to trying to manage the bad, the more valuable leadership is. So I don't think you can separate leadership from management. It's one thing. And how do we make it possible so that even people like me who are blunt and direct can succeed in the organization, right? And that I got really great feedback. And this is all about feedback, right? My manager said to me 4 years ago, Johanna, when you say things so people can hear, they are much more likely to listen to you. And I thought, right? So that was reinforcing feedback. She caught me succeeding. And that made a huge, huge difference in my ability to be successful as a manager.
I have a question really quick. What do you think about the debate of whether what you say matters or how it's taken matters? That's huge as well.
So, yes, right. You cannot change how people hear you, but you can make it possible for people to hear you better, right? So, Jacqueline, if I say to people, and Scott actually just put it into the chat, convince with your actions, not your words. So people see me write a lot, so they know I'm a writer, right? They see me admit my mistakes, so they know I make them. They see me measure stuff that I thought was not measurable 10 years ago, so they know that I can learn and go on. That's the whole business of thinking about what do people need to see you do, because your actions always speak much louder, and people always remember how you made them feel.
I actually quoted that this morning. Maya Lou.
Yeah.
You always make me feel happy.
I was going to say, I think that's a beautiful place to leave it. I'm a big fan of that. Yeah, people don't remember what you did. They don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. I think that's a very nice place to stop it there. I think we're up on time, and I'm always conscious that a wonderful speaker is a very busy lady, and I don't want to keep her here much longer, and I like to stick to the time boxes. So yeah, I'm gonna stop it there. Otherwise, we could keep Johanna here for ages and ask her lots of questions, and she'll keep answering them, and then eventually she'll shout at me. Right, and on that note, thank you, Johanna. It's always wonderful to be in your company and to hear from you. It's always so much to learn, so thank you. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind everyone, you know, if you're happy to unmute, please join me and give our wonderful speaker a much deserved applause.
Hey!
Ah, that was awesome.
Yay, thank you.
And thank you all for joining and make it such a wonderful session, and great questions and great participation as ever. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the festival. There's still lots of things to participate in, and take a look at the programme, and I'm sure you'll find other stuff that's of interest to you. And thanks again for joining. Stay safe, folks, and enjoy the rest of the morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you happen to be. We'll hopefully see you again soon. Thank you. Take care. Thanks
Thank
again,
you guys
John.
so much. Have a wonderful
Gracias.
evening.